It's the Mark Mason Show on News Talk 860 KFAM here in Portland. A busy Tuesday afternoon. Ron Callan with you. Yeah, the Indiana primary. We'll keep tabs on that all afternoon long with Charlie Maxton in the newsroom. But all of the talk is about Indiana and really the bitter battle between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And some comments that were made today, pretty outrageous by Trump, and Ted Cruz with one of his strongest criticisms of the Republican frontrunner. Let's welcome in Debbie Georgatos, who is a political analyst and an author out of Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. Debbie, how are you?
Very well, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you've been following this campaign. You've been following Ted Cruz. The statements made by Donald Trump that his dad was helping the eventual assassin of JFK, an article that was in the National Enquirer, has outraged Ted Cruz and his family.
I'm glad it's outraged them. Even National Enquirer has pulled this back. This was a story National Enquirer ran, I think, a week ago. And it's one of those tabloid stories with no substance. And I think a lot of Senator Cruz's supporters were kind of happy today to see a little bit of a stronger denouncement by Senator Cruz, because the story is pulled back, and yet Donald Trump went ahead in a Fox interview, I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday, and brought it up again as if it was a real story that people ought to keep in mind and be thinking about. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have dismissed this. Maybe the picture is accurate that, he was handing out flyers in New Orleans in 1963, but that's a long way from the assassination. It's kind of an absurd statement to make.
It is. In fact, I think Senator Cruz's campaign right away came out with a National Enquirer story for its first printed.
Debbie, one thing about primaries and the day of the election, and we do know that you could say that right now Ted Cruz has a standing 8 count as far as delegates go. Donald Trump's been on a roll, and statements like this come out the day of sometimes, because I don't know what it is, if it's desperation on the part of the Cruz folks, and if Donald Trump, he's putting the cart before the horse.
Yes, I just think this entire campaign has had so much, this may sound like an understatement, has had so much negativity, and a lot of what's been happening with the Donald Trump's use of the term over and over, liar, liar, lying Ted, I think that people have been waiting, Senator Cruz's supporters have been waiting to hear something stronger in denouncement of that, stronger message besides just continue with your positive message. And so I think, tensions are high, but I don't think Senator Cruz very often loses his cool. So I think he had decided it was time to really speak more firmly about, in response, not just to this story about his dad, but the whole Lion Ted thing that I think has done a great deal of harm, not just to the candidates, but to the GOP.
Do you think if Trump gets the nomination, there's any way the Republican Party can unite? Can Ted Cruz stand on a stage with Donald Trump? I mean, right now it seems so unlikely. But when it comes to November, the idea that what's a better idea, President Trump or Cruz or President Hillary Clinton?
Exactly. I hope the entire party can reach a conclusion that we simply cannot have another President Clinton, and so therefore they've got to unite behind whoever wins the nomination. But I will say this is going to be a tough one for Senator Cruz and actually for Senator Rubio. Senator Rubio's wife said, over my dead body would her husband ever be considered or take the VP slot. I think that this has been, on the part of Donald Trump, played too harshly, just too over the top, unsubstantiated allegations, and frankly the media is a tiny bit complicit, present company excluded, but has been a tiny bit complicit in not pushing back on Donald Trump's outrageous statements. And so I think a lot of harm has been done to the GOP in this election cycle.
Debbie Georgatos is with us. She's a political analyst, and you have a website that's called ladiescanwetalk.org, and one of your passions, right, is to get more women to not vote Republican, but to vote conservative. Explain exactly what you mean.
I certainly will, and thank you so very much for mentioning my website, ladiescanwetalk.org. And, I think that women, I've done a lot of research about why women vote the way they do, what motivates them to vote the way they do, and I think that women vote for kind of unintentionally vote for big government because they're voting out of a desire to have for fairness in our society, for compassion, for minorities, for just all sorts of reasons that they sound like really, and they are lovely things, having compassion, wanting fairness. But I want women to vote for long-term good solutions that involve reinvigorating the power of the Constitution as the basis of our country, reinvigorating the idea of limited government, that we can't have a government that provides everything to everyone and still have a prosperous and abundant free market economy. I try to talk about the bigger picture about America, and that's what I mean about conservatism. It's more than just GOP. It's the ideas behind America.
Last question for you, Debbie. If Trump wins big in Indiana tonight, should Ted Cruz say enough's enough? Because really, I mean, it looks like all the polls say that the states upcoming will be Trump states.
I absolutely do not think that the Ted Cruz campaign, that Ted Cruz should drop out, and I'll tell you why. I think this race is a lot more than just about a race between two men who are the final one standing, leaving aside John Kasich, but two men standing. I think there's a lot about people in America in the last 7 years under President Obama, and even watching the GOP in Washington fail to stand up for what is for what the GOP stands for. I think the people and many of his followers, Ted Cruz's followers, are just dying to see him stay in and stand strong. It's a lot about the identity. I know it sounds melodramatic. It's about the identity of America. It's about standing up for what America is supposed to be. So I hope Ted Cruz stays in the fight because you know what? It ain't over. That lady didn't sing. The race isn't over. The game isn't over.
Debbie Georgatos, political analyst, thanks for spending time with us here in the Pacific Northwest today.
Thank you for having me on.